session. So you will be invited to participate in several ways, including sharing in the chat as you're all doing now, introducing yourselves. At some points, we might ask if you would like to unmute yourself to speak. We do have a few polls, and there will be a breakout room towards the end. Does anyone have any questions on how to do any of those things, unmuting yourself? Any questions about breakout rooms before we jump in? All right, in that case, I'm going to hand it back off to Jen.
Okay, great. So thanks so much for being with us here today. You know, it is a small group, as you can see, and that's wonderful. That allows us for further interaction. If you're new to the RCLS community, welcome. It's great to have you here. So today's session is truly, when we say Advocacy 101, we are talking 101. It is, you know, it's truly the bare bones of what advocacy is and how to become further involved with advocacy, how to become knowledgeable of what's out there and to integrate yourself into advocacy efforts. While much of what we discussed today can be applied in any area, the focus is going to be on the library world because that's where we are. But feel free, you can always apply this knowledge to any other areas as well. This session is being recorded. When we move into breakout rooms, or if we decide to stay together as a whole group, that portion will not be recorded. So feel free to speak freely during those time periods. Like we said, we will not be recording those areas. If we are recording them, we will omit them once we publish this content to our YouTube channel. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Okay, great. All right. So I will say we are in, Joanne and I are in separate offices. We are next door to each other though. She's literally the wall over, but because we are co-presenting, we will be verbalizing oftentimes what has to happen next. So we apologize if that breaks things up a little bit. But before we begin, we'd like to go over some community agreements. We've used community agreements in the past. It's really great. Previously, it was in person. And then when this occurred, this meaning the pandemic, when we moved into the online format, we found that the community agreements actually still apply. And so essentially, I'm going to review these 8 agreements with the group. And at the end, I'm going to ask if you agree with them, and you'll place in the chat whether you do or do not. And if you'd like to add something, you know, we're completely open to that. So today we're going to be speaking about advocacy. And in some cases, we may be providing stories, dialogue, discussion. And throughout this presentation, we want to ensure that as a community, as a group, that we are providing confidentiality with our stories. So this would be in the breakout rooms. So what remains in what is stated in the breakout room, you know, stays within the breakout room. And it's not, you know, brought out of this session. The second agreement is the one mic. Now, in the online format, it's a bit more difficult. It means, you know, one person speaks at a time. I think as we've moved along during the pandemic, we've become more well-versed with using the features in Zoom, such as the hand raising feature or placing something into the chat. So we just, you know, request that you be cognizant and if you unmute, that's fine. You know, but just be aware that 2 people can unmute at once and try not to speak over one another. The third one is take space, make space. So bring something to the conversation, but also allow others to add to the conversation. The fourth is be curious, open, and respectful. I think those really speak for themselves. 5 is speak from your own experience. Secondhand stories are oftentimes riddled with inaccuracies, and so that does not provide with the full picture. We want to only hear from your experience, not, I know someone who, or whatever the case may be. Own your own experience. Other stories are not necessarily for you to share without their permission. Number 6, be conscious of intent versus impact, right? So in this session, generally the topics are pretty, they're pretty just even topics. They're not going, there's not a whole lot of disagreement. Like generally when we're talking about advocacy and library advocacy, we're all here because we want to advocate for libraries. But just be aware that sometimes a statement made is the intention can be harmful to others. So just be aware that there may be an impact that occurs on others. Be aware of time, especially in this online world. Like I said, we are going to keep an eye on the time and ensure that we end on time. And then number 8 is land the plane, which is what I'm going to do now. And so I will stop talking. I'm landing the plane, which is basically concluding what we just spoke about. So these are the 8 community agreements that we're putting forth. If you'd like to add anything, please go ahead and do so in the chat now. And otherwise, if you are in agreement, we will go ahead and form our group, and you can just say that you agree. And if you want a copy of these, we're more than happy to send that along. We really find that it kind of, it's a nice start to a session or a meeting. Okay, great. Thank you. We are all in agreement. So our first exercise for today is, what does advocacy mean to you? I'm going to have you navigate to a site called menti.com. You'll see that information at the bottom. And there's a particular code to place in there as well. That's also at the bottom, but I'm going to verbalize it. 78998354. So what does advocacy mean to you? Joanne, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you. What does advocacy mean to you? Okay. We see commitment. What else? What does advocacy mean? Leadership, community, goals. Yeah. Future forward. Like that. Support. It's great. Give it another moment if you'd like something, if you'd like to place something else in there. Leadership. Wonderful. Yeah, so we can see representation, commitment, promotion. Absolutely. What I think is great, this word cloud really tied together that we want to be forward thinking in projects and so on, but that we also need to be present in the here and now, right? In order to get to that forward movement. And so what's really interesting is we also have to consider the past when it comes to advocating, right? So we need to bring in what's occurred in the past to the here and now so that we can get to the future. So we're really tying in everything together. That was great. Thank you.
Just bear with me while I share my screen again. There we go. So this on the screen is the dictionary definition of advocacy. The act or process of supporting a cause or proposal, the act or process of advocating. So let's talk about a few ways in which you might already be an advocate. If you speak up about how you feel on a topic, that's a form of advocacy. Posting on an issue you're passionate about on social media, that might be advocacy. Telling your friends or family about a cause and why it's important to you, that could also be a form of advocacy. So a lot of you might already be advocates. It might be for libraries, it might be for something else that's going on in your life. There are also different levels of advocacy. So self-advocacy, speaking up for yourself. So let's say that you feel that you deserve a raise and you go to your boss and you say, these are the reasons why I think that I deserve a raise. That is self-advocacy. Individual advocacy, a little confusing because it can be an individual or also a group. And it can be formal or informal. So posting about something on social media, that would be the informal part. Going to a protest or a rally, that would be a bit more formal. And this would be advocating for some sort of group or cause. System advocacy is what we are going to focus on today, and that is advocating for policies, whether you want to change them, for laws, and this is the type of advocacy towards legislators. There is a lot more that goes along with these three different levels of advocacy, but as we said earlier, this is a 101 session. But if you do want to learn more, in October, Nyla did a great webinar specifically on these three levels of advocacy. So I just put the YouTube link to the archived webinar in the chat if you are interested in watching that later. So now we want to know in the chat about a time when you were an advocate. Again, it could be any of the three levels. It could be library related. It could be related to something else in your life. And I think we have a small enough group that if you want to unmute yourself, you could also do that.
In college, there were a lot of protests at school on campus, so we did sit-ins a lot, and I would participate in those with my friends. We would all meet up at during our breaks for classes, and we would just support the cause that they were fighting for at the time. And it was nice to be able to see us all together in this one space, fighting for something in a not in a I don't know, a non-violent manner, and we had posters and we were just all together, and that was nice.
Great. Anyone else who would like to share a time when you were an advocate? Oh, Maria, I saw your hand up. By the way, everyone, I can't see everyone when I'm sharing my screen. So if you're raising your hand, I can't necessarily see you. So feel free to just speak out. But Maria, go ahead. I can't hear you. All right, looks like Maria's trying to get her microphone figured out, but in the meantime, I'll read what Lisa wrote in the chat. She wrote, I belong to Art for AIDS, a group committed to AIDS patients pay their bills and get information about their conditions. That's great. Maria, if you want to type it into the chat, and then while she's typing, if anyone else wants to share. I see a hand up. Bernie, go ahead.
Oh, great. I'm glad that worked. I tried the Alt-Y to raise my hand, and I wasn't sure if that was going to work. Yeah, I just, I mean, I'm sorry, I had to walk away for a phone call just now. But I was going to say, as a library trustee, you know, even going to local town board meetings, you know, in the interest of learning what they're doing, and in particular, you know, if they're doing anything that kind of impact the library or going to encroach on the library, anything concerning either whether you know about it in advance or whether you learn about it at the meeting and then inquire about it while I have public comments. We've done that at Goshen a couple of times.
All right, I see one more in the chat. Two more in the chat. I'm going to read one. Keep paying attention to the chat and to see how other people are advocates. I'm going to read one and then we're going to continue. So Maria Vanessa wrote, in my personal life, I'm a healthcare advocate and general assistant for my grandmother. She's going to be 93 years old this weekend. Happy birthday. And has many ailments and matters to manage in her life. I've taken that on as I believe that those who came before us are a blessing with their experience and wisdom and deserve to be well taken care of and live a top quality life. Thank you. All right, and as I said, we're going to move on, but there are more people sharing in the chat if you would like to take a look at those comments. All right, so now that we know what everyone's doing in their lives to be advocates, why is advocacy important to libraries? So there are two basic reasons, if we're going to boil it down. One is funding. So if we don't make a case for libraries to receive funds, no one's really just going to give it to us. Governor Cuomo has used libraries as bargaining chip almost every year. And every year we have to ask our legislators to fight on our behalf to increase library funding that hopefully the state law dictates. We need to be strategic in our advocacy efforts so that libraries not only receive funds, but we also don't want to be used as a bargaining tool anymore. So in a few minutes, we are going to see how actual library funding compares to what state law says we should receive. And I'm going to hand it off to Jen to talk about visibility.
So with visibility is so greatly important when in regards to advocacy. Libraries are often forgotten or pushed to the wayside, right? And so when we advocate, we're not only doing so to discuss funding, but we're also reminding community members, legislators, whomever, what we're doing. You know, that we're not just a book repository. We are people who are forward thinking and discussing social justice issues and developing a collection that's going to make people think, right? And also provide history and context regarding other materials and so on. We're a gathering place with programs. We have a stronghold on early literacy. We work with the state of New York in education efforts. I mean, there's so much happening. And yet oftentimes we're just seen as a building, right? And so when we're advocating, we're telling those stories and getting that information out there so that that visibility in turn will then support those funding efforts when we need to rally and make a financial request or fight against cuts that are coming through. So visibility is of great importance and really goes hand in hand with that funding.
Okay, so this is the chart that I mentioned a little while ago, and it's the history of library aid. So this yellow line is what we receive. You can see in 2011, there was a big dip. Education law says that this is how much we should receive, this green line. So we're getting closer. We're not quite there. Our funding for 2020, it was the same, or sorry, we have the same funding now as for 2020, so it's not going anywhere. But then when you take account inflation, this is how much we receive, this blue line. So as I'm sure everyone here knows, libraries are not adequately funded, especially for the amount of services that we are expected to provide and do provide. So that's one of the reasons why advocacy is so important, so that we can fight for at least what we should be getting according to education law, and then also hopefully receiving what we should receive regarding inflation. So when Jen and I first looked over or planned this, we had ourselves to take a little refresher on civics. So we're going to share that refresher with you.
The legislature is the lawmaking
Can everyone hear the
branch of our
sound?
state government.
Yes.
The bicameral branch of government, which means it has two houses, the Senate and the Assembly. Members of both the Senate and the Assembly are known as legislators, and they have the same basic duty to represent the people of New York and pass laws. New York is a large, diverse state with millions of people and places, all of which have different things to offer and different needs to fulfill. This makes representing everyone a big job that could never be done by just one person. Currently, there are 62 members of the Senate and 150 members of the Assembly to represent the people of New York. The people that the legislators represent are called their constituents. Each senator represents around 300,000 constituents, and each assemblyman represents around 130,000. Either way, that's a lot of people. Each legislator represents a different part of the state, which is called a district. Districts can be different sizes because they're based on how many people live in the area. In New York City, a district may be only a few city blocks. That's because it's so populated and people often live in high-rise apartment buildings that are really close together. But in the northern part of the state, a district can be much, much larger, and that's because there are many fewer people in the area and the homes are much more spread out. So the main job of the state legislature is to pass laws, which is known as legislation. That's why they're called legislators. If someone has an idea for a new law, they present that idea to their legislator. He agrees that it's a good idea. He has it written into a bill. Once the bill is created, it's brought to either the Senate or the Assembly by the legislator to start the process of turning it into a law. Let's say that this bill is first brought to the Senate floor. First, the senators discuss the bill to figure out if it's good for the people that they represent. Then they vote on whether they want it to become a law. If the bill is passed, it must then go to the Assembly for a vote. The last step is it has to be given to the governor for his approval. If he says yes, then it becomes a law. If he says no, then it does not become a law unless the legislature chooses to vote on the bill again. If they do, and 2/3 of the members of each house vote in favor of the bill, it will become a law, even though the governor said no. This is part of the checks and balances system that makes sure that no single branch of our state government becomes too powerful. Whether the Senate or Assembly votes yes or no on any piece of legislation, it is their duty to make that decision based on what's best for the people of New York that they represent.
All right.
All right, so thank you. So when Joanna and I were putting together this presentation, I'll be totally honest. It's like, first of all, I didn't grow up in the state of New York, so I didn't receive New York History 101 lessons when I was growing up, but I was like, I really don't know much about it. And so we felt it may be beneficial to have that video, even though it was sort of elementary focused. How long ago were we in elementary school? So that's some background information. We're going to be revisiting that information in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and move on and talk about legislators. So we're interested in knowing, do you know who your legislators are? If you can navigate back to Menti. Joanna, do you just mind placing in the chat that menti.com? Great. And I'm going to share my screen. And be honest, really, do you know who your legislators are? We have some names. Okay. So we have, if you want to go ahead and answer, go ahead. For the most part, it does seem that this group knows who their legislators are, and that's good. Do you really know who they are? Do you know their names? Do you know their legislative agenda? Do you know their likes and dislikes? If they have children and pets, if they have hobbies outside? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Joanna, you can navigate back to the slide. So when we say, do you know who your legislators are? It's great to have, yeah, you know who they are by their names, but do you really know who they are? So why is that important, right? We know when it comes to voting that it's important to know what their legislative agenda is, because when you are an informed voter, you are going to vote which person best aligns with your personal beliefs and political beliefs, right? But when it comes to advocating, especially in libraries, we do not, we're nonpartisan, right? We accept everyone, right, and everything. And it's so important to know who your legislators are, not their names or their service area, but that personal information, just as much as their political agenda, because you're going to bring that information in when you speak with them. And it may not be when you're making a formal ask or having a formal conversation. It could be in that 1 or 2 minutes beforehand. Right? So we're going to talk about like NYLA Advocacy Day. And prior to COVID, this is when we would all go to Albany and meet with the legislators in person. But what happens during a meeting, right? Zoom, it's different. With Zoom meetings, we have a 10 o'clock session. We open the room at 10 a.m. and we jump into it, right? Because we only have so much time when speaking with legislators. And so if we have 30 minutes to speak with the legislators, and they can click end or leave because it's on the computer, then we only have those 30 minutes. But when you're in person, you have a minute or two where you're saying good morning or hello. And in that minute or even 30 seconds, you can insert something or make a connection real fast, right? Now, I just saw in the chat that someone wrote down that Colin Schmidt has a dog he adores. Yeah, his dog is all over his social media page, right? So what do libraries do with dogs? You want to have any idea? What are public libraries known for doing with dogs?
Reading aloud or having the kids read to the dogs.
Absolutely. And that is your connection right there. You know that he likes dogs and you can say to him real fast, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having us. You know, I know you post about your dog. I don't remember his name. I used to remember the dog's name. We just had our dogs at the library, by the way. Would you like to come sometime? So, you know, but it's immediately making that connection. You're not jumping into a political agenda because we're not interested in that. We want to advocate for libraries and we want to make those connections and those stories that's going to stand out with them. What have you also told him in that moment? You've basically told him that you're following him. Oh, sorry, Alice, go ahead. Were you going to say that?
I was just going to say the same thing, that you're aware of what he's doing and you keep up with him. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So without saying, you know, hey, we're watching you. We know what you're doing. We know what you're voting on. We're following you in the non-creepy way that we follow people. You're showcasing that you're aware not just of what's happening in Albany or behind their closed doors, but what's happening in their lives, and you're following that. This is a really big deal, especially for someone like Colin Schmidt, who has announced that they're going to be running for Congress, right? So you're also telling him that he's making a connection with the community, and that's, you know, we're not voting for anyone, but you're showcasing that you're following along. The library is watching, and maybe he's going to want to be a friend to the library as he, you know, runs this congressional campaign or what have you. So that's all greatly important. So where do we find this information? We need a slide change. Thank you. We call it research. You can also call it really fun stalking, but we like to refer to it as research. So there's a few places where, you know, you don't even have to do a deep dive into locating such information. Each of the members of the legislature, so the Senate and Assembly, they each have a web page that provides general information as well as their contact information, their service area. And we're going to take a look in just a little bit at this. There's also, if you don't know who your legislators are, there is the ability to conduct a search. There's a search engine. So I'll show you that too. NYLA has been fantastic, the New York Library Association, with keeping a legislative session page updated. So they have one for 2021, and it's updated generally as things happen in Albany, but more so on a weekly basis. And that's sort of like the way, so I don't speak, you know, politics or what happens during these sessions or what occurs in bills, right? So if you've ever read a bill, they're very long, they're very wordy, as they should be, right? All the necessary information is in there. NYLA has done a great job with taking all of that information and creating these little paragraph snippets so that you are just simply aware of what is the bill saying. Also, it's important to know bill numbers when speaking with the legislators, because if there's something that catches their ear, so for example, trustee training, and they're going to say, wow, that's really interesting. I want to learn more about that. What's the bill number? let me look that up for you. So it's whenever we speak with the legislators, it's also of great value to have the bill numbers. We will generally provide legislators with all of this information beforehand. Do they read it all? Probably their legislative aides do, and they'll brief the legislators, but it's always nice to have that information at the ready. Some other areas to find information about legislators, just do a basic Google search, see what's happening. And newspapers, right? Yeah, they're still around. As librarians or library staff, we know this, but don't neglect to take a look at what's being reported upon. There was an assemblyman in our area back in March or April of last year. He had COVID, and he was in the hospital for a really long time, and it was not looking good. And so the newspapers were actually reporting on when he came out. And so we were able to make that connection with him in the summertime, you're looking well. We're so happy to hear that, you're on the upswing. He lost a whole bunch of weight and everything. So we're able to talk about at that time how the pandemic was impacting the state libraries, but also see how he was doing. Joanna, do you mind if I share my screen? Nope, thank you. So I just want to go through those sites that we just talked about. I'm going to take a moment here. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So what I really want to showcase is Nyla's page. And we'll be sending out this information. So no need to write it down or anything. But what I want to navigate to is the library legislative agenda, which is, we had just spoken about it. And can everyone see my screen okay? Right. The reason why I want to review this page is because, sorry, I see a chat. So we have a question on Library Advocacy Day. Are you advocating for all libraries, or are you supposed to focus on your system? That's a great question. When we discuss funding during Library Advocacy Day, the funding comes to the system level, right? And then it's dispersed through to the libraries. So we are discussing funding coming down from the state to the system. So for example, there's construction aid. Construction aid had been, was posed to be cut down to $14 million for this whole state of New York. That's nothing, that's terrible. If you've ever done any sort of home improvement or even just bought a window unit for air conditioning, which we just had to do, you'll know it's expensive. Anything is really expensive. And so you're advocating to get more money so that you can give out more money for those projects. So it's a little bit of both, if that makes sense. So it's important to have those local stories and pieces of information because the money is coming down to the individual public libraries, but it also comes to the system, if that makes sense. Did that clear it up a little bit? Great.
I will also add that there's an education component, because when people think that funding is for libraries, they just think it's only for public libraries. But that is not the case. It goes to all types of libraries in New York State. So reminding the legislators that yes, it does go to the public library systems, but this will also impact hospital libraries. So if you would like doctors to be able to do research, maybe libraries should get funding, or they go to academic libraries and they go to museums and all sorts of different types of libraries. So just reminding the legislators that that is the case is hugely important and helpful.
Yes, oftentimes when they hear libraries, they think public, and that's the end of it. And that's not the case. So great question. So I did want to highlight this page because there's so much on here. And this is a page that we review before speaking with the elected officials on an ongoing basis. And so I'm just going to scroll down slowly so that no one gets seasick. Great information here. I'm going to look at the left-hand side just for a moment. New York Senate directory and Assembly directory. So if you're unsure who your legislators are, that's a great place to look. Social media. Legislators tend to use Twitter as their primary source of social media. Some are on Facebook, but Twitter seems to be the platform. So you can locate who your legislator is. The Senate website, the Assembly website, just to stay updated. And the big one, the state budget, right? So what happened? So this is all here. I'm going to keep going down. Information 101. If you would like further information about the inner workings or what's provided to legislators, taking a look at these links is of great value. Okay. And there's some more, but I want to scroll back up. And on the right-hand side is really where we've been watching. What's been voted upon, what's been voted down, what's been amended, where it stands, and so on. So you can see they're really great at NYLA with updating. You know, what was signed by the governor was back in March. You know, what has, passed Senate and Assembly and so on. So all of that is here. Again, you could see it's just broken down quite nicely so that we receive this much information, tells us what it is, and then we can, if you want to read the bills, you certainly can. There is a link right here to some of the one-pagers and such. Okay. Any questions about this? Also of value, I'm going to scroll up, sorry. Who sponsored the bill? Are they in your service area or are you in their service area? Should you thank them? Right, so that's the sponsorship. Oftentimes bills will have co-sponsors. Excuse me. After Advocacy Day, you'll see a number of legislators sign on to be co-sponsors. And that will be embedded into their, I don't think it's over here. Let me just see if they update it. Into the website, into like their websites. I'm just going to scroll down, but you can see, so this is the bill with the amendments. Yeah, you'll see this is, the co-sponsors are not there. But we can see who has co-sponsored and oftentimes send along a thank you. Okay. Also at the top here, contact your elected officials. NYLA's Advocacy Center. Become a library advocate. Scroll down. You can sign up and receive take action prompts from NYLA. So all of these are of great value when it comes to advocating for libraries. And it's all here. I mean, to take action, you receive an email that says, this is happening. This should not happen, and here's why. Take action now, contact your legislators. Okay. Any questions about this? As you can see, there's a whole lot of information. You can take some time and read through it at your leisure. Okay, Joanne, I'm going to stop my share so that you can continue with the presentation.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a few very basic tools that you can use for advocacy. When you visit a legislator, whether you speak to the legislator or their legislative aide, it's very helpful to have something you can give to them. Keep it short, keep it simple. 1 page is perfect. You can do something that involves bullet points just to highlight what you are talking about. This is an example of an infographic that RCLS created, and we filled it out and gave it to legislators when we visited them for the summer. In this case, we made infographics for several libraries, and we just gave infographics on all the libraries in a particular legislator's district, along with information on how libraries had been helping their communities during COVID lockdown. Everyone here has access to Library Aware. If you don't know how to use it, if you don't have an account, you can contact Martha Sullivan and she will set up an account for you. Again, it's free to you to use, and these templates are built in. Other resources you can use are Canva and PictoChart, and those also have nice infographic templates. But again, you don't have to make an infographic. If you just want to make a short 1-pager to hand over so that after you're done speaking with the legislator, they can review it and recall what you spoke about, that is fine. And now we are going to talk about elevator pitches. So when you're talking to a legislator, you want to be prepared and you need something short and to the point. It is important to tailor your pitch to each legislator. So a blanket pitch is not going to do it. So as we were saying before, each legislator has their own agenda, they have their own personal interests. So you want to show that what your library is doing aligns with their interests. So for example, earlier we were talking about Assemblyman Schmidt, and he loves his dog. So the Moffat Library, they do a lot of things that have to do with pets. They do a lot of pet food drives, things like that. And they're in Assemblyman Schmidt's district. So they let him know that they're doing all these wonderful things to support pets and shelters in their area. Assemblywoman Gunther, she was a nurse before she became a legislator. So if you're doing something that has to do with health and you are an Assemblywoman Gunther's district, that's something to bring up at your elevator pitch. Assemblyman Miller is really big on working with veterans. On the personal side, Assemblyman Zabrowski has 2 young kids. So if you're doing something early literacy, that might be something to bring up. I do have a sample elevator pitch. It has these basic parts to it. So when you're creating an elevator pitch, of course, you want to introduce yourself. If you don't introduce yourself, your whole pitch was worthless because they don't know who you are. You want to talk about a problem, why that problem is around, the consequence of that problem, and suggest a solution. Suggesting a solution is incredibly important and helpful because it shows that you are thinking about this issue, it's impactful, and here's an idea of what we can do to solve it. And you're not putting everything on the legislator or their aide. You're saying, well, here's an idea. So we do have a sample pitch. It is for a fictitious Senator Park. So here's the pitch. Hello, Senator Park. I'm Joanna Goldfarb from the Ramapo-Catskill Library System. Governor Cuomo is, once again, using libraries as a bargaining chip in the state budget. Library funding is already dangerously low, and shows the governor does not understand the importance of libraries to communities across the state. The governor does not understand the true impact of these services that we provide. If library funding is cut, it will lead to a decrease in services we can provide to our communities and your constituents. I suggest standing up for libraries while discussing the budget and inviting Governor Cuomo on a tour of libraries across the state. So, introduce myself. The problem, library funding is dangerously low. The cause, the way that the governor treats libraries when planning the New York State budget. The consequence of the low budget is that we can't provide services to our communities. And along with that consequence is why the legislator cares. These are our communities and these are your constituents. These are the people who are voting for you and they need your help. And the suggested solution is to invite the Governor Cuomo to libraries so that he can see firsthand what we are all doing. But that's not all. That was the basic pitch. There's also an advanced pitch. So let's say you have more time with the legislator and you're traveling up to the 15th floor instead of the 5th floor. You might consider your advanced pitch. So the first 5 steps of the advanced pitch are exactly the same. So I'm going to go straight to step 6, which is downside and upside. So again, you want to show the legislator that you have been thinking about this issue and you know that it's not going to be easy. You understand that there are votes. There's going to be people who agree with this, people who disagree. There, of course, is a downside and an upside to every issue. Then the final part is you're going to propose a first step. So this might be a first step that the legislator will take or a first step that you will take, but there's going to be some sort of action that you are proposing. So again, first part of the pitch, exactly the same. So instead of saying the whole pitch again, I'm just going to go straight to the end. So I suggest standing up for libraries while discussing the budget and inviting Governor Cuomo on a tour of libraries across the state. A tour of New York State libraries will take a good amount of the governor's valuable time. However, he will have a better understanding of what libraries do and how we help all New Yorkers. I will reach out to the New York State librarian to start booking library tour locations. So the downside and the upside. The downside, it is very time consuming to visit libraries all across the state. But the upside is that he'll know what we're doing. And then the first step is I'm going to reach out to the New York State librarian for you to start making this happen. Does anyone have any questions on an elevator pitch before we move on? And I will give you a hint that moving on will be you creating your own elevator pitch. Okay, so we've gone through a sample pitch, we've done a basic pitch, we've done advanced. We are now going to go into our breakout rooms. So it is going to be up to your group if you want to come up with one pitch for the group, or if you want to try to make an outline for everyone for their own pitch. We're going to give you a few minutes. If you do finish early, feel free to leave the breakout room and come back to the main meeting room. At the end of this, we are going to go over everyone's pitch. Okay, so
The breakout rooms are open.
Hey, Joanna.
Yeah.
Can you pop those, the 1 through 5, 1 through 7 up on the screen again? Please.
I can broadcast it.
Oh, that'll work too. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Apparently when you hit enter, it sends it all.
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, will that go out to everyone?
It should.
Okay. Lisa had to leave.
Just in time for the breakout rooms. How suspicious.
Funny how that happened. How long are we having the rooms open? Sorry. Did we tell them?
I just said a few minutes.
Okay. I'll give them like a 1 minute. What's that?
I think we're okay on time, so maybe 10
I think
minutes.
we are. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, because after this is just sharing their pitch or the first steps to becoming an advocate, which, where'd that slide go?
Yeah.
The report.
We can just add one in real fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find, maybe it's on another version.
I think it is. Oh, good. Another parent was like, I do not believe I signed my child up for this camp. It's not just me. Something happened. Oh my God, there's a shooting in Maplewood School.
What?
Oh, it was on Sunday. It's not new. Still awful.
Where is that stuff? I don't know where that slide went. All right. Okay. All right, I have steps 6 through 10 in my notes, but I don't have steps 1 through 5.
Mm,
But
if you want to put it in, I'll take a look at it. Yeah, that's good. Join the RCLS Advocacy Committee. Sign up to receive advocacy alerts from NYLA and ALA.
feel like number one was something funny. I don't remember what it was.
It has to do with Advocacy Day. You can say like follow them on social media.
We need one more.
Do they need to attend NYLA's Advocacy Day? And bring a friend. Strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna run to the restroom. Should I give a 3-minute warning?
Sure. Do you want me to take the 10 steps for advocacy slide?
That sounds good.
They're in breakout rooms now.
Oh, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't find anything in here at all. But of course, my eyes might be crazy now. This one might be a series.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
sure. And this one, I crossed it out last time too. I'm not finding her name in anything. That little name.
Oh, I think I just drilled you.
Okay,
All right,
so
cool.
that's it.
Thank you.
That I can't find, but I feel cross-eyed now. You're welcome.
Rice cakes isn't as fun of a snack as chocolate.
Sorry. I'm blaming my wanting to eat all the sugar on something else. I'm trying to look for a video to send to you and I can't.
You're trying to find what?
There's a video of this kid singing I'm Good. Have you heard the song?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I hadn't either. But it's a cute song. Oh, it's hashtag be like Trevor. Okay, let me do this. But this was like, I watched it this morning. I'm like, this is the best. See if I can find it. I don't know how to send it to you. Highlands Elementary School. So okay, I sent it to you.
You just watch this instead of finishing the presentation.
Go ahead. I still gave him another minute. He's so cute.
Ed Sheeran.
I know.
Cracking up is the best.
Great. It's so great. This is like a great video for confidence.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe, you know what? I'm going to, let's see if I can find it. For confidence booster.
Oh my God, the kids next to him are just like trying so hard.
I know, I know.
Yes, please.
So great. So great. All right, I'm going to close the rooms.
All right. I'm gonna share my screen again.
I'm totally down for sharing that video or showcasing the video.
Yes.
To
We can
remind
do it. We can do it at
you,
the end.
be comfortable, be confident. If you need a reminder, this
You're
12-year-old.
good. I'm gonna do that walking into a legislator's office, and then you'd be like, security?
Welcome back. Okay, so everyone is back, and we would love to hear your pitch.
Are we going in group order or room order?
There's only 2 rooms.
Oh, okay.
Formal. So whoever wants to go first is fine.
I can go first. I'm already unmuted. So, all right. So I was in a room with Sierra and Bernie. We had a really great chat, and so I'm just going to pretend that y'all are our assembly person that we're talking to, and this is an issue that Sierra brought up, but I'll say it as I'm saying mine because it's really hard to pretend to be other people while you're talking to a fictional person. So, hi, I'm Alice Beecham. I'm the library director at Rose Memorial Library. We really appreciate the time that you have and sharing that with us and your service to the community. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that's going on within our library and within our local community. We have a very diverse community, and as we're looking through the collection that we have, our collection, our books, our movies really aren't representing the community that we serve. And in particular, they're not representing the children that we serve. And we know that children learn best, they connect best when they are seeing reflections of themselves and finding characters that they identify with in the books that they're reading. And so in order to continue to promote literacy for our children and to get them really excited about reading and visiting the library and continuing to visit the library, we're looking to increase our collection of books that show various types of diversity. We have run into a little bit of a problem in that we don't have the budget to support expanding our collection in this way, in the way that we need to. So we're hoping that you will support whatever the initiative is that will expand the funding for libraries to further diversify their collection so that we can better serve our community and the community that you serve as well. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
That was great. Nice job. I don't know if you were in group one or two, but the other group, do you want to share?
In group 2, we talk about technology, keeping up with the new problem of the pandemic. We found out that many of our community found themselves unable to afford a good Wi-Fi. And that's one of the problems that the library is having, funding to have a better VPN or how to expand our band, or in our library that are having problems with keeping up with the service. And a good example is this weekend, our service were interrupted for glitches that happened in the main RCLS. We couldn't provide the service to our patrons. So we had many phone calls all day, taking phone calls. What happened to our band? What happened to our service? I'm home, or I'm homebound, and I cannot you guys cannot provide the service that I need for today. So we are asking you to see how can you give us that service, give us that funding to improve our technology with people that are ahead of technology more than a regular library, but also how to get better span to give better service to our library. I don't know what I'm missing.
The only thing I would add to that is your suggestions. So this is the problem. It's technology, it's an access issue. This is one idea that we have for a solution. Can you help? So that's what I would add, but definitely a good issue, and definitely one that I think a lot of us can relate to.
Well, we talk about one of the solutions that we have is to have better provider for our internet service in general with RCLS. Many times we have heard that we cannot afford a better service because they're becoming to be very expensive. And now we are in an era, or in this minute, that has become so important that we cannot have the luxury to say, oh yeah, we're going to have this service instead of that one. Because right now everything is so expensive, and it is a great necessity that we cannot afford it anymore. We don't have the luxury to say we're going to change to this system because now we can afford it, which is not true. It has become a necessity. So
right, and that's it. That's a great example how when we're at Advocacy Day, we're talking about this broad problem, right? That Wi-Fi access and internet access, paring it down to, as a system, we would love to provide greater accessibility, but we simply don't have the funds, and then bring it down to the local level. The interrupted service that caused, so and so, they were unable to complete XYZ, but if we had this much more funding, we could be there, and that's all we need.
We can be there.
Exactly. So you're essentially handing them the solution. Like, this is a problem. Here's the solution. We just need your signature, and that's it. So you just want to hand it to them. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. All right. So we have about 10 minutes left. So next, we're just going to talk 10 steps to advocacy. So this is kind of our version of that one pager that you're going to hand to legislators. This is the one pager you're going to take home. 10 things you need to know. So the first step is take an Advocacy 101 workshop. You did it. You're on your way. And I think that there's a rule that says that once you take step one, there's no backing out. So you have to follow through now. That's the rule. Next, you can join the RCLS Advocacy Committee. We do have a committee for advocacy. There are several subcommittees. Jen, do you have the date of the next committee meeting?
It'll be in September. We haven't determined it yet, but it is comprised of anyone and everyone who is passionate about libraries. So staff, administrators, trustees, friends, general community members, whoever wants to can be involved. So we'd love to have you.
Yeah. You can sign up for advocacy alerts, as Jen showed earlier, through NYLA. You can also sign up for ALA if you would like to be an advocate on larger nationwide issues. Follow your legislators on social media. As we said, great way to see what they're up to, what they're pushing, what they like and dislike. Mark, just keep February open, end of February for NYLA Advocacy Day 2022. Hopefully it'll be in person. That would be great. And we, of course, will be sending out information on Advocacy Day as it comes closer. Call your legislators. So if you see something in the newspaper that you liked that your legislator did, call them and say, nice job. A lot of times when legislators get calls, it's people complaining. So if you call them and say, that was great, you're going to stand out and they will very much appreciate it. You can invite them to events. If you have something at your library that you think is worthwhile and exciting, invite them. Sometimes they come, sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll send an aide, but at least they will know that you are doing something that interests them. Say thank you. So this does go along with phone calls. Say thank you early and often. If they provided you with funds, thank them. If you, again, saw something in the newspaper and they mentioned the library briefly, say thank you. A handwritten note goes a long way. I will say that legislators cannot accept gifts of more than $15. So if you wanted to send them something, it has to be less than $15, and do tell them that it's less than $15 because they might send it back. You could run for office. We need more library advocates in our state legislature. So if you want to run for office, that would be great for us. And of course, vote. I cannot overstate the importance of voting in any and every election that you have the opportunity to vote in. So that is our quick 10 steps to advocacy. So thank you all. Does anyone have any questions? We do have a few minutes left. And again, you can unmute yourself. We have a small enough group. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with.
We'll show a video if we have just a couple minutes remaining that goes along with this, I promise. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Bernie.
Yeah, it's just the first video you had about the Civics 101 in New York. If you could paste that link, or I mean, you're going to post this up online too with that, so that's fine. But yeah, I couldn't find that on YouTube, so I was curious about that. And yeah, did you want to mention that the subcommittees on the advocacy committee are going to meet between now and September? So if you want to join the subcommittees, you can contact Jen, and I'll offer Jen. You're going to contact Jen, and she'll point you as to when the next date is for one of the subcommittees earlier.
Yeah, thank you. So we have the RCLS Advocacy Committee. It's new. We have no roadmap. We're just doing what feels right. And so far it seems to be working well. We're engaging with the legislators. We're engaging with one another across the system in a way that we really haven't before. And it's quite nice. But I did want to bring up, so I watched a video this morning, browsing through my morning Facebook, feelings, going through everything. Got to get that Facebook time in. And came across a video and I was like, oh, this is so great. One of the main reasons why people don't attend meetings with legislators is what? Anyone know?
You think you don't know anything.
Think you don't know anything, and there's also there's another thing, and that's fear of public speaking.
Well, intimidation.
Yes, absolutely. Lack of confidence, absolutely. And it's I really saw it firsthand during the 2020 Advocacy Day before the pandemic occurred. It was my first one on behalf of RCLS, and so our executive director said, well, who do you know who's going to speak? And I said, well, I'll just ask people right outside the office. I'm like, oh, what are you going to speak about? What are you going to speak about? And outside the office, I would say to people, what are you going to speak about? And they'd say, oh, no, I'm not speaking. Oh, you're just here. As a person, supporting libraries, and that's great, but we do need people to speak. And yes, it's scary. And yes, we all face a lack of confidence at one point or another. So there's a video that I just want to show everyone where when you feel that you may lack some confidence, to just embody this 12-year-old for a minute or two as you engage. And I'm going to share my screen. If you've seen this already, I apologize. Share sound. So, so this is at a 6th grade graduation. The awkwardness of being in front of a crowd of people and singing and being 12, right, all at once, and he's just owning it, and he's doing his thing, and the parents loved it, the teachers loved it, and he loved it, and so there's an article about it. And so just to remind you, just be confident, own it. You know things about libraries that the legislators don't. You know that libraries are more than just buildings. And so when you go to speak with them, just keep that in mind and just be open about it. That's my little confidence booster for today. Okay, and with that, I like to end things on a fun note. Any questions?
I do see, Maria, in the chat, you want more information about subcommittees. We can send out meeting dates and more information in a follow-up email.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, and we will be sending an online evaluation form following this session, probably tomorrow or Wednesday. Feel free to send that back to us, complete the form. It's a SurveyMonkey. We'll send along the resources that we provided for today, including that confidence boosting video. And if you have any questions along the way, or if you don't know how to engage further with your legislators or where to start, or you want some inside information about where they have come from, maybe you can't find what's happened with their lives for like 10 years ago or whatever, we have that knowledge here. So feel free to reach out. And with that, I guess we'll say thank you and happy Monday.
Everyone, enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy this weather. Take care, everyone.